I was going to do a little disclaimer, or I don't know, a disclaimer, but maybe, well, looky there, the man in the yellow shirt. When are you coming to see us in Buffalo Gap? So, uh, we're going to be talking today about being happy, joyous, and free. And that's what the 12-step program promises us if we follow directions. And so, one of the things that I was going to talk about for a minute is, I'm up here with two of the best friends I've ever had. That's good news, bad news. The good news is that they love me a lot, and the bad news is they, I'm the misconfronter, well, they confronted me last night like they did an intervention on me. I don't know if they're going to send me to treatment or not, but anyway, so I thought, well, I'll just tell y'all about it and get y'all on my side. Anyway, and we do need to surround ourselves by people who love us and care about us. And, I think I've mentioned it on here, I don't know, but that I've had arthritis since 1972 and have had, treatment and different things. Anyway, it's been pretty severe to the point that, my knees are bone on bone, my shoulders are bone on bone, and I want to do surgery and I'm not going to let them, and da da da. So I've put myself on an anti-inflammatory food plan, and in January, and I have stayed on it religiously. And and it was not intended to be weight loss, but the side for that is the result part of it. I mean, I have zero pain, zero arthritis pain, no joint pain in my knees, in my shoulders. I mean, this knuckle, sometimes is up to there. It's within it's gone way down. And so that was the goal, is for the inflammation, to get the inflammation down, to have the arthritis. And I mean, it's been a miracle. And along with that, I've lost about 30 pounds. And so my dear friends did I guess, an intervention on me last night about they think that I'm enjoying the weight loss too much and that I'm, wearing smaller and smaller sizes. And, I'm seeing numbers on the scale that I didn't even know was there. I've never seen some of those numbers because, I'm the one that went up to 287 pounds. So I've never seen real small numbers. So anyway, I've been pretty beat up, bless my heart, from my dear friends last night. And that's what we have to do in recovery. We need to surround ourselves with people that will tell us the truth. And I will say Misty was very kind, and I hope Cindy's listening to this. Cindy was she was direct. She's my former business partner and one of the best therapists I've ever known. So anyway, they've made a commitment to. I can't even believe I'm saying this because anyway, I've made a commitment to eat more and gain a little bit of the weight back. So anyway, that's what we've been doing. Last night is they were intervening on me.
Well, she has intervened on us. I'm just going to say
Misty
that.
said, well, they're just getting it back on me because I've intervened on them. I have, and boy, they're getting it back on me today. And so we do need, in recovery, to surround ourselves by people who will tell us the truth. Not as harsh as Cindy did, but the truth. So anyway, today I wanted to talk about, because the program promises us, if we do the things that the big book says and the 12 steps says, we are going to find a way to live happy, joyous, and free. Do y'all believe that? happy, joyous, and free. So I was thinking about when I first really heard about happiness, and I've told you this little story before, but anyway, I had driven my mother to the chiropractor. I was always driving her to treatment or doctors, and I might have been 11, maybe 12, but anyway, as I sat in the waiting room, they had these little pamphlets, and I can't think of the man's name. Y'all would know him. He was a minister. And I started reading that, and it was talking about what we need to be happy, what we need in our lives. And we need, according to Norman Vincent Peale, is that his name? Norman Vincent Peale, I think is the name of the man that wrote that pamphlet, is the three things that we need is someone to love us, and something to look forward to. So I took that to heart as an 11-year-old, and I started doing that. Now the things to look forward to is I would just think of all sorts of little things. My life was very limited. It was, amounted to very little schooling and me staying with mother and all. But anyway, I would find something every day to look forward to, and pretty much have carried that throughout my life. And I always like to keep something on the calendar that to look forward to. By the way, what I'm looking forward to now is February. We're going to do another cruise. We'll be going to Mexico, and that is a very reasonable priced cruise, so I hope some of you could join us. We usually have 30 or 40 going, and what that consists of. And there's Gail, she's been with us, and so anyway, we do on days that we're at sea, then I'll do a workshop or speak or whatever, and then we'll have groups, we'll have 12-step meetings. Anyway, and then basically we have a lot of fun. And so that's on my calendar of something to look forward to. And I keep little things in the back of my mind, things to look forward to. Going to a movie, going to, visit with my grandson, visit with my children, and by the way, my children all live around me, and so I am privileged beyond words to have my three daughters live as close to me. And the kicker to that is they're all in recovery. We're all in recovery. And so we can be together. Used to, we couldn't because somebody would be fussing or fighting. We don't do that anymore, and it's all because of recovery. So being happy really is a choice. We can choose to be happy, or we can choose to be miserable. And, there's years that, I was miserable, living in the disease, my own disease, and then living with a practicing alcoholic. And there wasn't a lot to be happy about in those days. And I became very hard. I became like a staff sergeant in my home with my children. I'm not proud of that. Karen, bless her heart, she's the one that always comes back. But Mother, you were sweeter more times than you were. I think she told me the other day it was 80-20. Is that right, Karen? That I was sweet 80% of the time, but boy, that 20% they took cover, And I'm not proud of that, but it's that Al-Anon family group helped me with that so much, and helped me with my anger, and then lots of therapy. It took both. Not everyone needs both. It didn't just take therapy. It took 2 trips to treatment. It took 30 days for an eating disorder, came back home, stayed a few months, and then went down to Florida for 30 days for trauma. and then I would do 5 days, 6 days, 8 days. I'd go all over the country. Because what I wanted to do is I wanted to live in wellness. And if you want to live in wellness, you must do the work. You got to do the work. It is not anything that somebody can do for you. My husband, by the grace of God, found sobriety. When he passed away, he was sober 32 years. But I'd already been in Al-Anon for 14 before he got into AA. And his sobriety was his sobriety. It wasn't mine. It was his. And so each family member must find their own path to recovery. And so happiness is, like I said, is someone to love, someone to love you, and something to look forward to. And it's pretty bad when you can't read your own writing, And the joyous part is, joy, and we have joy on our feeling list as one of the 7 basic feelings. Because addicts, we can talk all day long about the negative feelings. Oh, I'm so sad, or I've got a lot of pain, or the shame, and we must talk about it, and we must work through it, But also underneath all of our childhood or, our young adult life, whenever, in our using years, there has been a lot of turmoil and a lot of pain. But through recovery, and I tell folks this, if you're not feeling happy, joyous, and free in your recovery, something's not working. You're not going to enough meetings. You're not working the steps. Something is not working. And it doesn't mean we're going to be just jumping up and down every minute, but we're going to find joy in things that we used to not find joy in. And what I call joy is the enthusiasm of God. And if you want to know what the center of happiness in happy, joyous, and free, the center of it is God-centered. And God can and will. He will take away any of those old bad feelings that we're willing to surrender to Him. But the God that I believe in is a gentleman. He does not force his way in where he's not invited. He's always there. And if we want to hold on to that stuff, that junk that made us so sick, He'll let us till hell freezes over. If you want to live in pain and anger and shame, you can. Or if you want my help, I'm here. And our job is to begin and to have a personal relationship with the God of our understanding. I found God in a little church behind our house, this tiny little church. And I went there, and it was a Baptist church. And so, they would have the altar called, and I was, what we call in the Baptist church, I was saved, I was converted. I knew that that about Jesus and that He was my Savior. And from that point on, I have held on to that belief. I know I'm in the center of His will. Not everything I do is in the center of His will, or used to, but it's, anyway, it's, and it was just this little small church, and I don't know if they knew what was happening in my home or not. I don't know. But they treated me so good, so good. And I went there for several years. The first year, I went every time the doors opened. And I was 8 years old that first year and turned 9. And I won a Bible, a white Bible, for perfect attendance. But those people, what I went for, yeah, they taught me, about God and about religion, but what I went for was the way they treated me, the way they loved me unconditionally. And I didn't know that word, but they just welcomed me in. And that's what we find. I've never found that kind of love, unconditional love and acceptance until I got to a 12-step program. I found it then. And then later on, I met my friend Misty, and I went to her church just to hear the music. I'm not Pentecostal. I'm not anybody's Pentecostal, but they're not that far off from the Baptist beliefs. I went there 5 years, and I have never, ever been treated any better than I was at 5 years. Kind of like I was when I went to that little church. I mean, I've always gone to church, always. Now, I don't anymore. I'm kind of off of organized religion, but that's another talk for another day. And so, anyway, I could get off on that, and I don't know if y'all take Texas Monthly Magazine, probably don't, but they had a huge article in there about the Southern Baptist. I don't know if my friend TJ has seen it, but one of the highest ranked people in the Southern Baptist Convention was a sex offender. And they did not do one thing to him, nothing, zero, except got him, thank God. I mean, he was an old man when they finally took him out of the ministry. So that has kind of dimmed my light about organized religion, about Southern Baptist, but anyway, you can find abuse in any denomination. It's not just Southern Baptist. Anywhere there's a group of people, you can find abuse. And it's how they handle it is what's important. And some of the churches, and I've worked with, like the Mormons, do not go outside. They do not go outside the church. They handle it all inside the church. And so did the Southern Baptists, this particular incident. And these people actually need to be imprisoned. It is I had not even intended to talk about that, so let me get off of that. But anyway, because that doesn't sound very happy, joyous, and free. So, like I said, joy is the ultimate, it's the feeling of joy is the ultimate, it's God's, the enthusiasm of God. Joy is the enthusiasm of God. When you feel joy, what you're tapping into is that love of the God of your understanding. Do y'all believe that? When you really feel joy, we don't generate that ourselves. That comes from within. This is my belief. That comes from within, and it comes from having a relationship with the God of our understanding. And I like that, a God of our understanding, and that comes from the 12 steps because, and the reason that Bill W. did it like that, he had a very deep belief in God, but he didn't impose his belief in God on others. He knew drunks from the inside out, and he knew if he gave them, directions that you cannot recover without believing the way I do, without believing, the way that I believe, God, that he'd lose them. And so this is the joy of the 12-step program. It's the God of your own understanding. Now, some people have fits over that. Well, how could you choose your own God? And they're usually the people sitting in the church pews. They're not sitting in the 12-step meetings. And what that means, it creates an opening. If Bill had written in there that you had to find his God, his God, he had been a battle, I'll call it, for years and years and years. And on his last trip to detox, his friend Abby had visited him a few days before, and they grew up together and they were drinking buddies. And one day Abby came to his door, to his house, his apartment there in New York City, and Bill had already started drinking that day. And when he opened the door, he saw Abby. And what he saw with Abby was a change in Abby, particularly his eyes. There was a different look out of his eyes. And then his dress, he was dressed up. It was in the 1930s. He had on a zoot suit and had that wide, tie and big lapels on that suit. He was looking good. And what Abby wanted to do was take the message to Bill. Abby had started a program that had 6 steps. And that's where he found God. And he's the one that took the message to Bill W. And Bill poo-pooed it and just wanted him to go so he could drink, because Abby wasn't going to drink with him. But he had that seed planted in his brain. Abby had planted the seed about the God of his understanding, and how that's how he was staying clean and sober. And so the next time then, it was shortly after that Bill went to detox for the last time. And as he was laying there shaking, from DTs, and they didn't have they didn't know a lot about how to treat detox then. They didn't realize the seriousness of it. Drug addicts are not going to die. I've never seen one die from detox. They can hurt and ache, and it's awful, detoxing from drugs. But alcohol, they can die from it. I mean, they can die from detox of the drug alcohol. So he was having a hard time detoxing. And Bill, the thought came to mind about Abby. And Bill said a simple phrase: God, help me. That's all he said. God, help me. And Bill reports that he saw an image, and people thought it was his DTs. He knew different. He saw an image of God in his room. And from that point on, Bill stayed sober. Bill had what we call, and very few people, I've been in this field almost 50 years, and very, very, very few people that I've known have had that flash of light spiritual experience where, like that, they have a spiritual experience, and the desire to drink or to, practice an eating disorder or drug addiction is gone immediately. Very few. I could count on probably one hand. I mean, it does not happen very often. Most of us have what Dr. Bob had, is that slow educational type of recovery where you peel off the layers of the onion one layer at a time. And, for the first 2 years of Dr. Bob, who, those of you don't know, was the co-author he wasn't the co-author of the big book. That was Bill's project. But he was the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I think God picked out those 2 men because they had such different stories. They came from such different directions. Bill had, and even their recovery was so different. Bill had the flash of light, spiritual experience, and he never wanted to drink again, ever. Now, he did kind of switch over and did a little stuff over there with women. He had, and a lot of addicts do. They'll get into sex addiction. Bill did. And he had a problem with it. But for alcohol, he never had the desire to drink again. Dr. Bob, for 2 years, wanted to drink. And what Bob did is, in Akron, Ohio, where he was a physician, after work every day, he'd get out and he would go find drunks to work with and bring them to their house. And I met his son one time at an Al-Anon conference, Scotty. And he said he could always tell when they had a new drunk to sober up, because they would always take his bedroom upstairs, and they would put him in a little shed, a little building outside. And he said he could smell formaldehyde. I don't know how in the world they sobered people up with formaldehyde. Am I saying that right? Formaldehyde. But he could smell that, and he knew that he'd be giving up his bedroom that night, And so I don't know how I got off on Bill and Bob, but I don't think we can ever talk about them enough because they have helped so many people and continue and it's our job as recovering people to carry their message. And it saddens me sometimes. I travel a lot and have gone to meetings, not in every state, that'd be an exaggeration, but a lot of states I've gone to AA meetings. And the longer I'm around the program and the more meetings I go to, the more, some of them, not all, but some of them are watered down. I'll go into a meeting, they won't even have a big book. They talk about mental or emotional problems. That is not what a 12-step program is. You go to a therapist, you talk about that there, you work the steps, you're going to get well from an addiction. There's no failure to it, zero failure with the steps. But anyway, I'm just saying that those of us in a 12-step program must keep it alive and well and keep the basic text there, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, or you go to NA. I've been helping a friend through the steps with NA. I'll tell you what, they have some good literature, some of the best I have ever seen. I'm very impressed with it. But anyway, okay, being happy, joyous, and free. Joy is the enthusiasm of God. And then being free, recovery is about freedom. And I see people have through the years that, and I will tell you, when I was at the Serenity House, and they still have a high recovery rate. But when I was there, it wasn't anything about me. I mean, by the grace of God, I got to start the program, I got to implement the program, got to hire the first counselors, and I didn't know anything. I was fresh out of school. But I have seen very few people that would have a flash of light spiritual experience. Most of them have that educational type, that slow peeling off the layers, And anyway, in working with alcoholics and addicts, I loved it. And, I never go to a conference here in Abilene, or I never go, there's times that I'll go to the beauty shop, or not the beauty shop, the nail shop. I don't go to the beauty shop, I do my own. But if I go to the nail shop or out buying groceries, invariably there'll be times that I'll see someone from clients that I treated at the Serenity House. Didn't have anything to do with me, but I carried the message. And they would come up to these old gray-headed men and women would come up to me, and they still do. I see them a lot, and they have to tell me who they are because some people don't get gray-headed, but they did. And they would tell me how much sobriety they have. And, like I said, it wasn't me. I'm not getting a big head about it, but it's about carrying the message. Not the person, but carrying the message. I carried my poor husband for so many years, tried to sober him up. Finally got into Al-Anon and put him down, and my mother down, and my daughter down, and quit trying to sober him up. And I'll be doggone. But my mother never sobered up, never found recovery. I did put her in the Serenity House one time. She loved it, loved every bit of it, and she wanted me to buy her a room there. She wanted to live at the Serenity. I wish we had kept her there, but anyway, for whatever, we didn't. So recovery works, and through recovery, this is how we learn to live happy, joyous, and free. The freedom that we're talking about is freedom from addiction. Addiction, whether it's an eating disorder, drug addiction, alcoholism, it takes us over. Takes us over from the top of our head to the bottom of our feet. And it just, lives in our body, in our mind, and it is a disease. I get so sick and tired of hearing people, and we still hear it today, in today's time. as much education as there's been about drugs and alcohol, I can still hear family members say things like, well, they could stop if they wanted to, or she could stop purging if she wanted to, or she could eat if she wanted to, or she could stop eating if she wanted to. They are clueless. And I never wish the disease on anyone, but sometimes family members, I wish for just a week they could have it, just a little touch of it to get an idea of, I mean, it is not easy to have the disease of addiction. It is not. And but the bottom line of recovery for addiction is learning to be happy, joyous, and free. And if people don't find that in the program, they need to kind of redo. They need to take a step back, see what's not working. Maybe, I'm not telling you to all go change sponsors, but you might need another sponsor. You might need someone to take you through the steps. If, I see people that go through the steps one time early in, recovery, or maybe in treatment or right out of treatment. And then they think, well, I got that done, and, and I'm not throwing bouquets at myself, I'm not. And what I was taught is to do either an annual or semi-annual inventory every year. Don't have to do that big long thing, but we must look at our lives and what's not working, and the part that we're playing and what's not working in our lives, because it's always about us. I so wished it was somebody else. Don't y'all? I blamed it on my poor old mother for years. If she hadn't been a drug addict, I wouldn't have had to eat and get fat. I stayed at home, took care of her, and all I had to do, I didn't, have any friends, so I just ate. I mean, if I had an ingrowing toenail, I blamed it on my mother, any and everything. So we have to stop blaming people, and start loving them where they are, because I'll tell you, if family members don't have an addiction, they're clueless. Don't try to educate. I mean, you can try to educate them, but they want you to hurry up and get well so you can quit going to those meetings, because it's taking up too much of your time away from them, So the best combination for a couple, and I love to work with couples in recovery, but the best combination for couples is for one spouse to be, if they qualify, to be an AA or NA, and the other one be an Al-Anon, and going in the same direction on little different tracks. There's a railroad track behind our house, and that's what I tell couples. One gets on one of those rails and one gets on the other. You have separate rails, you have separate paths, and if one's an Al-Anon and one's an AA, you stay on your path. You don't get over there and try to, mess with your partner's program, or don't let them mess with yours. But you get on those rails and you walk your own path. And if you'll notice, if you stand on a railroad track and you look down, eventually those rails come together. Artists calls that the vanishing point, don't they, Sherry? They call it the vanishing point, and a lot of artists draw that vanishing point where, whether it's a railroad track or a road or whatever, and they come together. And that's the joy of couples being in the program. And I hate to say this, and I know a lot of men AAs, guys, many of them do not want their wives to go to Al-Anon. They don't want them to get too smart, I don't think. I don't know what it is, but they do not want them to go to Al-Anon. And then if you have an alcoholic woman, now I will tell you, men that are married to alcoholic women, if they'll suit up and show up and go to open meetings with their wives, I'll tell you, those Al-Anon women will swarm around them. they will swarm around them and try to help them. Now, they don't do that much with women. They do not, I mean, there's something about us women that even, I mean, they just kind of look down their noses like, well, why'd you stay with that sucker that long or whatever, I don't know. But anyway, the best coupleships that I have ever seen is where one's in Al-Anon and the other one's in AA, and then they don't cross over. Other than they will go to some open meetings together. I know when my beloved Mr. Mack was alive and before he got sick with Alzheimer's, Saturday night they always had a big speaker meeting at the open door. For years we served on that speaker committee and we'd help get speakers on Saturday night, but that was our date night. We would go out to eat, and we still had kids and all, but we'd go out to eat and then we'd go to that speaker meeting. And that was our time to, together, because we were busy raising kids and working and all that. And those times that we spent like that were some of the most happiest, joyous, and free times in our marriage. Is when we were both treating our addictions. And then later, at the same time, of course, I was getting so sick about eating disorder. I'll just tell you this, and I've got, anyway, I don't know what anyway, I got really sick with not my eating disorder, but an eating disorder, sick enough to die. My liver was shutting down, my colon was about to fall out of my body from the bulimia. I was sick, and I was programmed directly for drug alcohol treatment center. And I was going to one of the best internists in Abilene. Do you think I ever once told him that I was taking about 100 to 125 X-lax a day? I didn't. I'm like a drug addict. A drug addict has to keep up in the ante, because you don't get the effectiveness. And I just kept adding more and more. And by the time I went to treatment, I was sleeping maybe 3 hours a night. And I was very ill, very ill. And, I wasn't anybody's hero or anything, but when you've been kind of a leader in the addiction field in a town, and then you go to treatment for an addiction that no one knows anything about, like I was the first one that, I believe that got any help in our town for an eating disorder or ever claimed an eating disorder. We were all ignorant. I didn't know I had an eating disorder. I just thought I was doing everything I was doing to keep the weight off that I had lost. And I'll tell you, talking about coupleships, my older children had left home, and it was just the younger daughter. And she is the one that experienced my disease more than any of her and her dad. And they were the only two in my corner. Only two in the entire town. My beloved Al-Anon group, our beloved friends at AA and Al-Anon backed off away from us because they didn't understand. They could not believe that I would go to California and stay 30 days because I was fat, or thought I was going to get fatter, So we had some rugged times in early recovery, his and mine. But I'll tell you, the two people that supported me was, like I said, my youngest daughter and my husband. And then we had to teach other people. And Ariel, bless his heart, he would stand up to those AA people and, just talk to him about, well, she has a disease just like alcoholism. And he was a quiet man, but boy, he was my spokesperson. And so the happiness is a byproduct. We don't just get happy all of a sudden. Being happy is a byproduct, I think, of our actions and our behavior. And then we learned, through the program or whatever we're doing, we learn about joy, the joy of recovery. And then I'm going to take this talk in an entirely different way that I had intended to. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to hear it. Y'all just go to sleep if you want to. Maybe I need to hear it. But this is what the program gives people, is to learn to live happy, joyous, and free. The freedom is freedom from an addiction, freedom from the call of the substance. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? That noise in our head, whether it's for a drug, whether it's for food, whether it's for alcohol, it's that call that's always there, until we find recovery. God is the only, I believe, it is a spiritual, it's a twofold illness. It is a physical illness and it is a mental and emotional illness. The main problem lies in the mental and emotional side. It's between our two ears is where the disease is, and it manifests itself in different ways. And so to live happy, joyous, and free is to learn to treat the addiction. And I'll tell you, when you do, it will put life in perspective, the right perspective. And what happens, sometimes you'll start off with one addiction, and then you might uncover another one, and then another one, and then another one, or you might pick up another one or two. That's how addictions work. Because what addicts are after, we do not like to feel bad. We like to feel happy, joyous, and free. Free. And if we're not careful, we can be clean and sober from our primary substance, but then might find other things to help us get that little, jump start or whatever. That feel good is what it is. So one of the things and then I'm going to let y'all talk, I promise you. One of the things is some people, not everyone, but some people stay miserable in recovery. Have y'all ever known anyone miserable in recovery? Yeah, Jeff has. He's been around a long time. He's worked with a lot of people. I'll tell you what, if I didn't find something in recovery, why would I go? I found a life beyond, in our OA literature, we find recovery beyond our wildest dreams. That's what I found in Overeaters Anonymous. So what happens if we stay miserable in recovery? One reason is because we're control addicts, and control steals peace. If you want to lose your peace of mind, you try to control everything around you and everyone, because they are not going to mind you. They have a mind of their own, and they're not going to do what you want them to do, and you're going to get all frustrated, and it will steal your peace, and you will not be happy, joyous, and free. You're going to lose it. And resentment, resentment spoils the spirit. If you want to live in everlasting heartache and heartbreak, is hang on to resentment. It'll do it. Resentment is where you get up every morning and you think of that first grade school teacher that did you wrong, whatever she did, or he did. You think about, and then you think about it a little more and a little more. And a resentment is broken down. S-E-N-T, sent, is a Greek word, senteri, that means to feel. So the prefix re means to repeat the feeling. So that's what a resentment is. We just repeat the feeling over and over and over and over until we can feel just about as bad as we can, and it poisons the spirit, the very soul of recovery. And then shame keeps us hiding. This is why we've got to look at these areas. If you have any form of shame, I will promise you, guarantee you, it started in your childhood, and you've built on it. And it doesn't have to be anything great big. One time that someone can say something, a day in the life of a child is much different than a day in the life of an adult. And if there are sensitive little children, sometimes what is said and done to a child, a sensitive child, goes to the heart of that child. and they will begin to carry shame, and it's not their shame, it's the adult's shame. And then they carry it till they come into rooms like ours at the intensive, and they realize that the shame that they've been carrying, the burden that they've been carrying, has a name, and it's called shame. And it keeps us in hiding as long as we carry that shame. It keeps us in hiding. We hide from ourselves. We have to put up a facade. Anyway, isolation keeps us disconnected. So recovery is, I want to get to recovery, is about connection. And this is what we get in a 12-step program. Connection, connection, connection. And we don't have to have a lot of people in our lives to connect with. Robert Kennedy said, when we die, if we have 2 to 5 people, friends who know everything about us and love us anyway, that when we die rich. We don't have to have the masses agreeing with us. We have to have a few people who understand us, understand the addiction, understand our bad moods when we have them, where they have that understanding because they are us. The reason they can understand is because they have it themselves. And what makes all this work is we don't both get down at the same time. If you do, then you got to bring in a third party, and then you just all go to a meeting and talk about it. So that's what I have about learning to live happy, joyous, and free. And I started with it, and I'll end it. If you want to know how to be free of an addiction, God can and will heal any area of our lives that we're willing to surrender. But we've got to give it up. We've got to surrender it. So that's what I have on Happy, Joyous, and Free. What do y'all have?